That I will. That's at this point, I think that's almost irresponsible. Or am I tripping? Oh, Hero made a good point here. He said you got to learn from your parents' mistakes. You can't control a kid no matter how hard you try. Just, yep. I think you're right, Hero. I actually think for the most part, look, every parent, the problem with parenthood, and I'm starting to realize it too, that when you become a parent, you want everything that you weren't able to accomplish or the things that you want to accomplish in the future, you kind of throw that on your kid, you know? You're like, well, I wasn't able to do this when I was a kid, so I want to make my kid do it. And sometimes I guess you're lucky if you have a kid that has similar interests or a similar personality to you, but your kid might not care about that stuff at all. Like when I was hanging out with all the supercar guys, we would have one or two buddies who would bring their kid along, and the kid would be already like a teenager, and you could tell that they had no interest in cars at all. The dad's like, oh yeah, I just bought this Lamborghini, my son, and the son's just like, he didn't care at all, wasn't excited, kind of just being dragged around. That's one of my biggest fears, man. Having a male son and homies out here playing with Barbie dolls. No way. But at the same time, what can you do, man? In 2025, in that freaking public school, what can you do when Hasanabi's your teacher, your son's teacher? What can you do? You can't do shit, right? You can't do shit. Kanai says, gay son or Hoe Daughter? Shoot, man, I think I'm gonna have to go with the Hoe Daughter, bro. I'm not lying. Unfortunately, Kanai, what else can I say, man? Because at least that's reproducing, spreading my genes. At least you're gonna have descendants. Like at the end of the day, isn't that the whole point of us even existing on this planet overall? Having descendants, spreading your genes. So shit, man. One of them is a biological dead end. I hate to say it. That might get me canceled. I don't know. But it's the truth. One of them is a biological dead end. At least in the other scenario, your genes are getting spread. You'll have some descendants and shit. Who knows? If she's big enough, if she's Bonnie Blue, you might repopulate the earth. If she's Bonnie Blue, if she's Lily Phillips, you might repopulate the earth, man. Joe Rogan made a devastating point, and I want to see if how many of you guys agree with it. Have you ever noticed that when you live in the suburbs, right? And you live in I don't know how many of you guys live in the suburbs, but when you live in the suburbs, you tend to know who your neighbors are. You might not be good friends with your neighbors. You might not get along with your neighbors. But you know their names. You know their occupation. You know the basic information about them usually, right? Do you guys agree with that? Drop a 1 in the chat if you guys agree with that. But for the most part, in my experience, that's how it's been for me. When I've lived in the suburbs, I've known who my neighbors are, kind of what they do. But he pointed out that when you live in a city and you live in a building, you tend not to know anything about your neighbors at all. Like the neighbor that lives next to us, the neighbor that lives across from us, the neighbor that lives on the other side, we don't know nothing about them. We don't know their name, who they are, what they do for a living. You don't say nothing to them. When you see them in the halls, you kind of put your head down, not wanting to talk. And that shit kind of blew my mind because I never thought about it until he said it. I was like, God damn, he's right. Joe Rogan said, yo, the reason I can't live in New York and in one of these buildings is because when I was younger and I lived in a building, I didn't know anyone around me. I didn't know who my neighbors were. I didn't know anyone in the building. I lived with thousands of people and I didn't know who they were. And I'm like, damn, that's a devastating fucking point.